Hi there Booktube, it's Eleanor here and it's time again for my weekly wrap up. This week is a slightly shorter week. I was wading my way through a rather large book and having a little bit of a reading slump. I'm not sure if it was a slump, but I had been pushing myself to read books that were out of my comfort zone, and I think it sort of slowed down my enjoyment a little bit and therefore made me feel a little bit sluggish. But don't worry, I found a book that has picked me back up again and I'm continuing on. So I will tell you about the books that I've read this week. I'm participating in the Booktuber-thon and I have put out my TBR, which I may be tweaking, but I'm going to try and vlog it if I can, so you'll see any tweaks in the week. So I'm going to show you what I've read this week. I'm going to show you some of the books that I have received from publishers or from the library that I'm planning on reading before Booktuber-thon if I can, and I'm going to do my shout out. My shout out this week is the lovely Sophie from Portal in the Pages. She's a relatively new person for me to have subscribed to, but I love her videos. She's really interesting. She really says what she thinks. She's really articulate. I love the types of books that she reads. She reads a wide variety. I think her thoughts and feelings on the book are really interesting, and yeah, I just love watching her, and I really encourage more people to go and check her out and subscribe. So into the books that I've read this week. Unfortunately, the first book that I finished this week I haven't got because I have posted it on to my friend Charlotte from Ramblings of an Elfire. I watch Charlotte's videos a lot, and she has recently moved to London and she came to the Booktuber meetup last week, and I said I was finishing this book. She said she was interested. She had a book I was interested in, so we said, right, let's just post each other the books, and we did a swap. So I will show you the book that she sent me at the end of this video, but I sent her my copy of The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. This was my first Donna Tartt book. I have got The Secret History, but I wanted to read The Goldfinch first, and I was doing it as a buddy read with the lovely Victoria Harris from channel of the same name. We had put it off last month, and I think both of us were going in with a little bit of trepidation because it is a massive book. I think it's 800 and something pages, and having not read any Donna Tartt and having it won, I think it won the Pulitzer Prize in 2014, you know, it's quite a daunting prospect, especially for someone like me that tends to veer towards more general best-selling fiction or sort of YA and young and new adult. So I went into it feeling a little bit nervous, especially after a few weeks ago trying The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton and finding that that just wasn't for me. However, I shouldn't have been worried. I really enjoyed it. Donna Tartt's writing is really engaging, really easy to get into. I think for me it was probably too slow a book overall. It was a slower book which I didn't mind to begin with, but I did find that the plot dragged a little bit as we got further on into the book, and I was kind of like, okay, this could have been written a little bit shorter. I can however see that people that like the slower read with the emphasis more on the character would love this book, and I really did enjoy it. The story is about Theo Decker. We start his story when he's, I think, 13. He's been in trouble at school. He's about to get called in to see the principal or the headmaster with his mum for possible suspension. They're an hour early. It starts to rain, so they run into the an art museum, him and his mum. Something happens, a tragedy occurs, and it is how that tragedy affects his life from there on in, and various circumstances that then cause you know, it's cause and effect, so things that have happened and how they affect what happens next in his life. I would have to say I really enjoyed the first half of the book more than the second. Whether that's because for me, because it was a slower read, by the second half I was feeling a little bit like, come on, I want to get through this now. I don't know. I think perhaps longer books aren't necessarily for me unless they're really action-packed. I can read longer books. I do like longer books, but there has to be quite a lot of action, I think, to keep my attention, and so that slightly spoilt the enjoyment for me. However, I did really enjoy it, and I gave it 3 stars. The second book I read this week was another buddy read, and that was with Christina from Nomadic Reads, and it was a reread for her, but the first time for me, and we read Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I'd never read this before. I was really excited to give it a go. It's sort of one of those things that most people have read either at school or seems to be a book, you know, like Orwell's Animal Farm or 1984. It seems to be one of those books that people have read and I hadn't, and it was about books and burning books, and I thought that sounded really interesting. This just didn't work for me. I'm glad it was short because I would have put it down otherwise. Don't hate me, people that love this book. I was confused. I didn't really understand exactly what was going on half the time. I'm sure that's probably more to do with me than the actual writing, and I can, you know, I totally hold my hands up. I just couldn't get what was going on 100% of the time and why certain things were happening. It's set in a dystopian world where we follow Guy, who's a fireman, and the firemen don't put out fires, they start fires and they burn books. It's about a world where you know, books are banned and obviously burnt. I just didn't get it, and I gave this one 2 stars. And then after sort of that really long book and that disappointing book, I really wanted something that I knew I was going to like because I was starting to feel a bit slumpy, and so I picked up Between the Lines by Tamara Webber. This is an author who I recently read Easy, I think, and Breakable, and this is the start of one of her series. It's about a girl called Emma who gets her first chance in sort of a Hollywood blockbusting film, and it's her co-star Reed. It's told from both of their points of view. So Reed is already, you know, a teen heartthrob in films, and this is Emma's first big film, and Reed's decided to make Emma his conquest, and we just sort of follow what goes on from there. I think there's 3 books, maybe more, out in this series already, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm over halfway. I started it today. You can see it's, you know, it's one of those books that I can fly through and I really enjoy, and I don't have to think too much about, and it was just what I needed to pick me back up again. So I'm going to finish this one, and unfortunately my library doesn't have any of the others, so I'm going to have to see if I can get it online somewhere, the rest of the series, because I'm bound to want to read the rest of these. So on to, there's the book that Charlotte sent me in exchange for the Goldfinch, which was really kind of her. She didn't have to do that. And that was Villa America by Liza Klausman. I have one of Liza Klausman's other books, which I want to read at some point. I believe it's called Tigers in Red Weather. But this one I've heard about recently, and it just sounds really interesting. I believe this is sort of set in the 20s, which really appeals to me. And so I'm excited to give this one a go at some point. Then I requested a couple of books from Bookbridger, and I was really lucky to get sent them, so these are for review. One is called Nymphs by Sari Luuthanen and Mikko Oikonen. I apologise, I've probably ruined that. I think this is based on a TV show. I think there's a TV series that's out. When I read the blurb, it was sort of compared to the sort of Originals and the Vampire Diaries type thing, and that's right up my alley, so I'm hoping that this is going to be a really good story. I also received A Pound of Flesh by Sophie Jackson, and I think this is a new adult romance by the sound of it. I believe it's a romance between a prisoner and a prison tutor, so I think I've heard about this on Ginger Reads Laney channel, but don't hold me to that. But yeah, right up my alley at the moment. I seem to be wanting to read a lot of new adults, so I'm excited to try this one. And then 2 graphic novels that I got from the library this week that I'm desperate to read, and I'm going to probably try and read between now and the Booktuber-thon, and that is Nimona by Noel Stevenson. I've heard lots about this and wanted to give it a go, and when I saw it was in the library catalogue, I thought, why not? Saves me buying it. And the other is a book I've wanted to try and read for ages, and I hear lots of great things, especially from Lena at Just Kiss My Frog, and that is Blue is the Warmest Colour by Julie Moreau, and I can't wait to read this one. I believe this one is about a lesbian relationship, and this one is about a girl that wants to be a sidekick to a supervillain. So 2 totally different types of graphic novel, but both sound brilliant, and I can't wait to read them. So that's what I've read. It's a shorter week this week in terms of what I've read. It was a bit slower, but that's fine, and that's what I'm looking at sort of reading between now and Booktuber-thon, because I'm filming this a couple of days earlier than you're seeing it, and some books that I picked up and I'm looking forward to reading soon. So what are you reading? How's your week been? Have you read any of these? Please can someone tell me a little bit more about Fahrenheit 451 and what I'm missing, and yeah, I look forward to speaking to you next week. Bye for now, Booktube.